Hi everyone, Cal Ewing here, and welcome back to our second video installment on self-directed IRAs and real estate. And I'm here again with Derrek Long from Quest Trust Company in Texas. And today we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into self-directed IRAs, how they work, the different types of accounts that you can set up, and the benefits of each type. And then Derrek's going to walk you through a really cool case study showing you how you can actually invest in real estate through your self-directed IRA account. So Derrek, man, thank you so much for giving us your time and coming back again today. I know that you're very passionate about this topic, very knowledgeable, and you've helped hundreds of Americans get their self-directed accounts going, helping them figure out what types of accounts are best for them, and helping them self-direct their investments so that they can grow their retirement. So thanks for coming back, man. I'm really thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, awesome. So hi guys, like Cal was saying, my name is Derrek Long. I do work with Quest Trust Company. I am an IRA specialist. So what I'm going to be talking about today is how to utilize your retirement account and what we can invest in. So we're going to be going over a lot of things. In video one, we talked about a lot of the basics. So this one's going to be a little bit more advanced, but we're going to go ahead and recap some of those basic things that we talked about real fast. So we're going to go and start by bringing up the PowerPoint.
Good.
Awesome. So I always like to start off by introducing this little basic stuff, but don't forget about our disclaimer. Guys, I'm not here for investment advice or legal advice or any type of structuring advice. My Quest, we always have a disclaimer, and I'm really here just for education, which is why Cal brought me on. So I'm really here just to kind of hopefully educate you guys on what you can do with your retirement account. So real fast, let's talk about what types of plans people normally have as a retirement account and why we like to call them self-directed. So the first thing we always like to think of is personal plans. These are plans that an individual is going to set up, right? This is a traditional IRA or Roth IRA, and this is something I set up or my spouse sets up, or maybe I might set one of these up for my kids. Now, if we look across the board at all of the accounts here we have at Quest, the majority of our investments happen inside that traditional IRA. Now, the traditional IRA is something that grows what we like to call tax deferred, meaning any investments I do in this account, right, doesn't pay tax today, but it pays tax in the future when I retire, right? Now, everyone hears about the power of the Roth IRA, which is the second account that you see there on the screen. The Roth IRA, once we do an investment, avoids all the taxation, right? So a lot of times people are like, well, if the Roth IRA avoids all the taxation, why don't we do every investment inside the Roth? Mainly this comes to because of these employer plans that we see here. The SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, or a lot of people have a 401k, 403b, a pension plan, a TSP. Now, all of these plans are also tax deferred, meaning any of these employer plans can be moved into that traditional IRA. So when I had a job, my previous job was I was in the military, I worked in the Army, and I had a TSP. Well, my TSP there, my thrift savings plan, rolled into a traditional IRA. So if I spent 20 or 30 years working at a job, right, and they've been paying into that 401k or that 403b or whatever I have, all of those funds most likely are tax deferred. This is probably why the majority of our clients are utilizing a traditional IRA to do these type of investments, okay? So when we look across the board, we do offer everything you see on the screen, the steps, the simples, the 401ks, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, they're all great. But we do offer something unique as well, and it's these specialty plans that you see here. So we also offer a Coverdell Educations account, ESA, CISA, depending on who you talk to, it's what it's called, and a health savings account. So the Coverdell, the health savings account, and the Roth IRA all grow what we like to label as tax-free, okay? Meaning anytime I do an investment in one of these accounts, I get to avoid all the taxation. So it doesn't matter what my investment is, if I'm buying stocks and I sell it for a profit, if I have it in a mutual fund, or if I'm buying and selling real estate, these accounts avoid 100% of the tax. But these specialty accounts, the reason we like to label them as special is I get to use them today. Guys, I'm 32 years old, All right. This means that when I do an investment inside my Roth or my traditional or even my 401k, I can't benefit from it today. All the profit goes back to the retirement account, and I actually don't have any benefit today. It's all for my benefit in the future. Instead of a retirement account. But if I utilize a ESA or a Coverdell account, I can take the same account, leverage it just like I would a Roth or a traditional IRA, grow the account completely tax-free, and pull out any of the earnings today, as long as I'm going to use it for school expenses. The health savings account works the same way. It grows completely tax-free. I can pull out all of the earnings for any medical expenses. So we're going to talk real quick on what is an education expense and what is a medical expense. Education expenses is not just college. This is backpacks, school supplies, laptop computers, right? Tablets, those type of things. Anything I would utilize to get me through school. Maybe tutoring, right? Health expenses. I recently used my health savings account to buy hand sanitizer, Kleenex, and Tylenol. Amazing. Well, normally for the average person, what they do is they work a job, they make their money, taxes get taken out, then they use that money to go buy that hand sanitizer, Kleenex, and Tylenol. But what if you just thought a little differently? And you said, what about I use a health savings account, do an investment, let's pull out the earnings, all right, avoiding all taxation, then use that money to go ahead and buy my hand sanitizer, Kleenex, whatever it is I may need. Suddenly, we're able to capitalize on different buckets of money and avoiding more tax. So that's really the purpose of utilizing one of these accounts. So when we go through all these accounts, we come into some restrictions, and we talked about these last time, right? And the restrictions are on the IRAs. We have some. Oh, go ahead, Cal.
So I just want to clarify for everyone. So you're saying that the Roth and the ESA and the HSA, they're tax-free, but don't you just have to pay the taxes up front? Is that how it works?
Yes, it is. So when you make a contribution to one of these accounts, the contribution will always be after tax, meaning the money came from my checking account, my savings account, something along those lines. When I put it in there, I can't take a tax deduction. Now, all of that's true except for that health savings account. So there's an extra benefit we didn't talk about, and that's when I make a contribution to the health savings account only, I can take that as a tax deduction, and I can immediately pull it out tax-free.
So if I put $1,000 in my Roth, I've already paid tax on that ahead of time before I put it in, right? So that's why I don't have to pay tax in the future?
That's correct. That's correct.
So if my investment grows over time, and I've already paid tax in the beginning, does that mean I don't pay any more tax on the gain, even if there's appreciation or something like that?
That's correct. Zero capital gains tax, zero income tax, zero earnings. So if you start a Roth IRA early enough, or you get some money in there now, or if you're just converting funds from a traditional IRA over to a Roth, moving forward, now that the tax has been paid, there's no additional tax.
That is so cool.
So, and it's a great way to avoid capital gains tax, especially if you're a real estate investor.
Absolutely. So, whereas a traditional IRA, you're paying all that capital gains still, but you're just paying it at retirement, correct?
Yeah, so it's not filed as capital gains tax. It ends up just being added to your modified adjusted gross income when you take a distribution. Right. So if I take out a $50,000 distribution, according to the IRS, I made $50,000 this year, and that's what I'm going to be taxed on.
Right. Okay, that's really powerful.
Yeah. So with that, though, don't forget about the restrictions that come with these IRAs. All right. We have some investment restrictions, right? Some transaction restrictions, and then some people restrictions. Really, the only thing that affects the majority of us is going to be these people restrictions, and there's something called disqualified people. Right? It states that if my IRA is going to avoid all taxes, it can't invest in some key people. Okay, my IRA cannot invest in myself. Well, that makes sense. Meaning I can't take my retirement account and I can't go buy myself a house. The IRS doesn't look at that as an investment. They say, hey, you just didn't want to pay the taxes on the distribution. You're buying yourself a house and claiming it as an investment, but it's not. So that happens, you're right, can't do it. But it's not just you that's disqualified. It's actually this cute little list. Well, boom, look at that big thing. So this list is actually not as bad as it seems. It really comes down to being your lineal ascendants, all right, and lineal descendants. This means your parents and grandparents, your kids, your grandkids, and your spouse or any of those people's spouses. So I cannot take my retirement account, invest into one of those key people that we just mentioned. Okay, I can't buy them a house. I can't let them be a renter, anything along those lines. And the next thing that always pops up is people say, well, I'll set up an LLC, right? And my kid will be the managing member. No, it's the same thing. Guys, that's just an extension of yourself. You setting up an entity doesn't make a difference. If the retirement account directly or indirectly invests into one of those people, you just can't do it, okay? So what can your IRA invest in, right? There's so many different things. I just put up a small list, right? And this is, you're gonna start seeing them pop up. But these are some of the private assets that I see here a lot at Quest, okay? And at Quest, we have such a strong transactions team that goes through each one of these types of investments, that deal with them on a daily basis. We fund these type of investments you see here on the screen, about 600-700 of them a month, all right? But unfortunately, most people are more familiar with the public assets. So we're gonna take a minute and talk about some of these, if that's okay, Cal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we look at what your typical custodian does, and we're gonna think of like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, or Merrill Lynch, what they're doing is they're selling you an investment. Now, this doesn't make them bad, all right? This is actually, it works out for a lot of people. They can sell you stocks and CDs and bonds and mutual funds, annuities, these type of things. But when you're taking the time and you're investing in some of these, what are you investing in? And it's really funny because we're gonna go over some of the advantages and disadvantages, right? And if I think of someone like my mom, right? My mom is not a savvy investor. My mom doesn't like to take the time to look over specific documents. So for her, investing in one of these public type assets, like an annuity, is very hands-off, right? So I think that's a positive to some degree, right? So it's very hands-off, but unfortunately, typically you get a lot of small returns. Now, the reason you get these small returns is, believe it or not, your custodian, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Merrill Lynch, they're the ones doing all the work. Right? The reason it's so hands-off to yourself is they're doing everything. Well, this means that they're going to capitalize on a good portion of that return. They make money on your investment. That's why they sell you the investment, right? There's no security for this. So this is one of the things that really bugs me, and we're going to do a little case study here in a minute on it, but when I invest in some of these public assets, I don't have a security for it. If the market crashes, it's gone. I lost the money. I don't have anything securing my physical investment. This is scary for a lot of people, especially as they get older, right? Once again, I'm 31 years old, so this doesn't affect me as much. No, I don't want to invest and lose my money, but someone who's 60 or 70 years old, they're not as likely to want to put their stuff in something with no security, right? The last thing is not understanding or knowing what you're investing in. So unfortunately, a lot of people, oh, you have your money in an annuity? Great. Why do you make that 1% a year? And if you ask them that, it's really unique. They have no clue why. If you ask them why they're getting the returns on that dividend, they have no clue why. They have no clue what they're invested in. And that's sometimes scary, right? And if you start to break apart some of those investments, it might not be something you would ethically normally want to invest in. My dad has a great little story about that, how he is investing in this company that was doing animal experimentation. He tells all about it, and he's a big animal activist, and he loves animals. And when he found that out, it really hurt him hard. He was like, I can't believe I've been investing in this. But it's only because he had no clue, right? Which is typical for the average American putting their money in public assets. So little case study I like to talk about, and this is one that I did personally, is a lot of us are familiar with stocks. stocks. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to go over a case study that deals in the stock market. That's okay. Yeah. So if you've ever heard of penny stocks or over-the-counter stocks, there's some unique things about them. It takes a small amount of money, right? You don't really need a lot of money to invest in these stocks, right? It's easy to buy and sell, believe it or not. I can click a few buttons and I bought something, clicked a few buttons and I sold it, right? And it was kind of unique for me to watch it grow. Now, when I say watch it grow, I'm talking about watching it grow over about a 1 hour time frame. So what ended up happening is, for myself, real story is I got out of the Army. I was able to save up a couple of $1,000s and I wanted to do some investing. Didn't really know what I was doing. So I Googled how to start investing with a small amount of money and I came across penny stocks. And I took my money and I threw it in some, right? I added myself to a whole bunch of newsletters that said, hey, this stock, this stock, this stock, this stock. And it was really funny. I made about $1,000 on my first investment. I was super excited. I was like, cool, like this is awesome. So then I went through and I did it again. And I lost it all. I'm like, well, that sucked. Well, what do I do now? I just lost everything. And it actually kind of hit me pretty hard. And when I started looking and trying to figure out why I lost everything, it was very unique. First thing, back to, I didn't have anything tangible. Honestly, to some degree, I was gambling, right? I really didn't understand what I was investing in, right? I was taking a chance on the market going up and I was going to buy low and try to sell it high. It didn't really work out for me. There was so much fluctuation in this and it happened so quickly that if I missed the boat, you missed the boat. You're done. What also happened was at the end of the year, I had some tax implications. I didn't do this penny stock style investment inside a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. I did it personally, which means at the end of the year, I got a 1099 for the $1,000 that I made, but I lost all my money. So that wasn't great. The last thing is I had no training. I had no help. My help was Google, right? And it's really weird when I finally called the broker who was helping me buy and sell these stocks, and I was like, well, is this a good stock to buy? He'd go, I don't know. You can't tell me that. I was like, wow, there has to be a better way, right? I didn't have a lot of money. What can someone with a small amount of money or even a large amount of money invest in that's tangible, that doesn't fluctuate quite so much, and I can avoid that end of year tax implications? So I started talking and I looked around, and my dad told me I had to change my mindset a little bit. What is something that makes sense for me to invest in that I can touch, right? What's something that I can see? Can I control this investment, right? I want to know what I'm investing in. And not only that, I want to know who I'm working with. And if I can answer yes to each one of these types of questions, suddenly that might be something that makes sense to invest in, all right? So overall, I start looking through, and my dad, being a real estate investor, kind of led me that direction. And it was really funny. I didn't really know what I was doing. But once again, I was able to ask my dad, well, Dad, does this investment make sense? Suddenly, when I asked my broker, does this stock make sense? Oh, but I asked my dad, and he goes, nope, don't do that one. Well, when I asked him that, it was very, okay, which one should I do? He goes, what about this one? And I was able to get some concrete, help, some real advice, some real direction in what I was investing in. And it honestly really helped and changed my life. So then what ended up happening is a friend of mine, Brian, I met him in the Army. His name's Brian Lee. We were stationed together. He started kind of looking at being a real estate investor himself, in the same boat I was, and didn't have a lot of money, okay? So we found a really, really cheap piece of land. The total price of this land was actually $9,500, and that's the exact picture of it, okay, right there straight in front of us. And he called me up, and he said, hey, Derek, I would like to buy this piece of land. I think you'd make a great partner. We're both kind of going through the same thing, right? We don't have a lot of money, but we had money from our TSP that was sitting over here, right, from our retirement accounts. So what we did is we moved it into a traditional IRA. We chose to pay the taxes up front because we know that the long-term benefit of the growth being free would make sense. So me and him both made the decision to convert our small amount of money, right, into the Roth IRA. Next, we went ahead, we made an offer on this house or on the piece of land. We got it, which was nice. And our plan was to sit on this for several years, knowing that in the future, someone's going to go ahead and want this piece of land that we purchased for $9,500. That's pretty cheap, especially the way we divided it up. So when we went through this process, me and Brian, we both partnered our retirement accounts together to do this type of investment. All right. When you physically read the contract, it read like what you see right there on the screen, those yellow letters, Quest Trust Company for the benefit of Derrek Long, IRA, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as to my percentage, which happened to be 50%. So I own 50% of the land inside my retirement account. And notice Quest Trust Company for the benefit of Brian Lee as to an undivided interest of 50%. He owns 50% of the land. This means at closing, both our accounts put up $4,750. That's not a lot of money to invest, right? That's a small amount of money, but notice in total, we were able to partner together and bring in a larger amount. Now, I like to talk about the partnering aspect for a minute, strictly because in this specific case, it was two people with a small amount of money. But my dad, what he'd like to do is his previous job, he had a 401k, a large amount of money when he left after working there for almost 20 years. And suddenly, when he moved his money over here, I didn't have a lot of money. So what if I partnered with someone who had a little bit more money and we were able to leverage one another, right? And he was able to help me out as my dad, saying, hey, this guy needs $100,000 for this investment, but how about I give him $99,000, you give him $1,000, and we could leverage one another and bring in and help each other out. So this was just very unique. This is just one type of partnering aspect we're going to go over.
So Derek, when you were talking about the lineage restrictions, so as long as you're investing within an IRA, you can partner with your parents and siblings and children and grandparents and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, right, when we talked about prohibited people, okay, your IRA cannot invest in yourself, your spouse, your parents, your kids, right? But in the example I just gave, that I didn't invest in my dad didn't invest in me. We both partnered together, bought an asset, and then when the asset had a return, we got our returns. Right? Notice we didn't invest in one another. I didn't buy my dad a house. My dad didn't lend me money. No, we each purchased our percentage of the asset, right? Just like you see here on the screen, right? If instead of Brian Lee, if that would have said my dad's name, right? Well, my dad would have owned 50% of the land and I would own 50%.
And since it's all within your IRAs, you're okay, right?
Yep. Not only that, but even if it was outside, if it was me personally and my IRA individually, that's okay. As long as I keep it what the IRS calls parallel. Right? So if I own 50%, and my IRA owns 50%, I can't say, hey, let me give all the profit to my IRA. Doesn't make sense because it's not the right ownership. Okay? Well, cool little story about this is if we look at this next picture, this piece of land was the piece of land that we purchased for the $9,500, this little thing right here. This old guy hated this little complex right here. And this was a golf course, if you can't see, all right? And he refused to sell the land to the golf course. And they've been making him offers for almost 15, 20 years. Well, he finally got old enough and he decided to sell it to me out of spite instead of selling it to them, which is kind of funny. Well, the golf course, as soon as they heard that I bought the property, made me an offer. And almost 45 days later, after holding the property, we were able to sell it for $15,500. Now, I want you to understand in this story, neither of us got rich, right? We didn't go ahead and turn around and make millions of dollars. I can't retire off this, right? But the key point to this is understanding the percentage I invested and the percentage I got back, all right? So when we decided finally to sell this piece of land to the golf course, $7,750 went back to each of our accounts. They didn't just go back to our accounts, though. They went back there tax-free. Interesting. All right, so it's just kind of building wealth through unique techniques is what I like to call it. So if we look at some of the takeaways, I like to once again bring up the partnering aspect. Notice how two people were able to partner together to buy one specific asset. All right. If I look at just the percentage of the return, it was over 58%. That's a heck of an investment right there, right? What if I would have been able to do that with something like $100,000, right? That would have been nice. Notice, though, the 58% return is way better than anything I was able to receive in one of those public assets, right? This can be done utilizing one of your children's ESAs, right, to build up that education account, that health savings account. This could also be utilized if you have younger kids. Sometimes they don't understand saving for retirement, right?
You're doing that right now.
But if you just go ahead and you go through the motions themselves and you set up a retirement account for your kids, imagine being able to build up their account for them utilizing one of these type of methods. All right. The last thing I always like to point out is I was in control the whole time. I knew what I was investing in. I physically took actual pictures of my investment with my retirement account. I was able to work with someone I knew and trusted. Right? I knew my friend Brian. I trusted him. Right? We knew the realtor that helped us close on it. I physically know about the title company that we went and did the closing at. It was really unique. It was completely different than me investing in those penny stocks. Worst case scenario, right? I didn't sell that property and I decided to sit on it for 10, 15, 20 years. Okay? Understand I had something tangible that wasn't going anywhere, right? It was always going to be there. So I think it was really, really just very unique and it's different. So that's pretty much my segment for the day, Cal. Outside of that, did you have any other questions for me or anything?
Yeah, just one quick one, Derek. So you were saying you can set up multiple different types of IRA accounts. You've got your children's education IRA, or I guess your own education, and then you've got your health or medical account. I can't remember the name of that one. So can you partner with yourself?
You can. So if we look at someone like, and I don't mean to refer to my dad, but I guess I look at him a lot as a mentor because he's teaching me and he taught me a lot about doing some of these investments and some of these loans and those type of things that we go through. And when I look at some of his notes that he does when he lends to a fix and flipper, it's really funny. It's Nathan Long's traditional IRA, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at 20%. Nathan Long's HSA at 18%. Nathan Long's Roth IRA at 70%. And then Derrek Long's Roth IRA at 3%. And he partners them all together, but so they all get a certain percentage of return. One of the reasons two people like to partner, a lot of times you don't have all the money in one place, right? So hypothetically, Cal, if you came up to an investment, but you were $5,000, $10,000 short, but it was a heck of an investment. Wouldn't it be nice to bring in a spouse? Wouldn't it be nice to bring in your brother, bring in myself, bring in a kid, right? Something along those lines. And sometimes just thinking outside of the box slightly will really, really help you in facilitating your next type of investment.
Okay, so if I were to find an investment like that I wanted to do, Derek, I would just take it to you and you could set it all up. Like, say I wanted to partner with my brother's IRA or use my children's education account. I would just take that to you and you would set it up for us or for me?
Let me explain kind of what we do here at Quest is I would set up all the accounts that you would need. Okay. I don't care if it's for you or your kids or your wife, right? Then you and I can review how much money you can get into each of these accounts and where the money would come from, whether it's a 401k or a contribution from a checking account or whatever it may be. All right. Transferring of another IRA. After that, bring me the investment. Right, and we can figure out sitting down individually. Well, are you going to use your Roth for this? Or you use your Roth, your wife's Roth? What are you going to do for this? But don't confuse that with structuring advice. Remember, I won't be able to fully structure that deal for you. I wouldn't be able to draw up the promissory note. You have to be in control, and this is the real purpose of self-directed IRAs. Remember, you want to be in control. That way, you know what your money's doing. You're making those decisions. You're the one going through the motions. Now, once again, I have no issue sitting down, nor do any of our specialists, and helping you understand what each account can do and maybe why you should use the one account over the other. Does that kind of help?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I think that was great, Derek. I don't want this to run too long, but man, there was so much great information covered there. So next time we're going to talk a little bit more about lending on real estate as another way to use your IRA.
Oh, and I love that topic. That's actually where I got started. So,
And we're also going to go through a few case studies on how you can lend on real estate through your IRA. So Derek, I really appreciate your time today, and I can't wait to get you back for this next video.
awesome, Cal. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man.
Bye, everybody.
This is around 3111. So Derek, I really appreciate your time today, and I can't wait to get to that. So Derek, I really appreciate your time today, and I can't wait to get you back for this next video.